Okay.
There you go. You said move the mic around all you need? You move the mic around all you need. There you go. Yep.
Like about so?
Perfect. All right.
Okay.
Mr. Wallace, go ahead and raise your right hand.
I'm a little hard of hearing, so.
No problem. So is Board Member Burns. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate?
I do.
Are you the same Jearl Wallace who filed pre-filed testimony and exhibits in this matter?
I am.
Do you have any corrections to your testimony?
I do not.
If asked the same questions here today, would you provide substantially the same answers?
I would.
Would you like to move admission of your pre-filed testimony and exhibits?
Would I like to make additions?
Would you like to move admission? Would you like to move admission of your pre-filed testimony and exhibits?
I don't need to make any changes or anything like that.
No, do you want to move? Do you want to admit into the record everything you've already filed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the board will admit the evidence, give it the weight due. All right, so you've been here all afternoon. We are now going to turn you over to the parties. The parties are going to cross-examine you and ask you questions about the testimony you filed, and then the board will ask you questions, and then you'll be able to make corrections. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Mr. Jorde.
Thank you. Can we pull up the KMZs for this, please? And sir, I understand, is this, it says it's the estate of Bonnie Wallace. Has your mother passed and the estate just not?
No, my wife passed.
Oh, pardon me, I'm sorry to hear that. Your wife passed and the estate just hasn't settled yet?
It has not. My wife passed May 12 of this year.
All right. And did Summit attempt to survey on any of your land in question here?
I had given permission to survey, which I withdrew, and then I received a call from them asking if they could survey, and I said no, and they have not surveyed to my knowledge.
Okay. To your knowledge, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Do you live on the site there?
I certainly do.
And if we're looking up at the screen there are three approximately 40-acre sections, squares in red. Do you see that?
I do.
And do you live in the northeastern of those three squares?
Yes, I do.
And do you know how far approximately that would be from your home to the proposed pipeline?
I do not, but I would be interested in knowing that.
Could we measure that, please, from the home to the pipeline there? All right, that says 829 feet, approximately 830 feet. So with that understanding, sir, and the evidence of an 8-inch pipeline being able to rupture at least...
Excuse me, I was told it was going to be a 10-inch.
Oh, yours is going to be a 10-inch?
That's what they told me.
Okay. And which county are you in?
That is Cherokee County.
Cherokee County.
We're right on the line.
All right. And so with the understanding that there's evidence that a non-worst case dispersion from an 8-inch pipeline could travel at least 1,855 feet, does it concern you to be within approximately 830 feet of a 10-inch line?
It concerns me very much because my children visit and my grandchildren visit the farm. And yes, that does concern me very much.
And has Summit shared with you or been transparent with you relative to the potential risks and hazards and hazard distances this project could pose to you?
I've heard none of that from Summit.
Okay. If you were even considering signing an easement, which obviously you don't have to do, would you need to know that information before you could even consider making an intelligent choice?
Well, it certainly would influence my choice.
All right. And then, do you also own the 40-acre piece that's not highlighted in that quarter section?
We do.
Okay. All right. And then, do you have any tile, whether patterned or otherwise, on this ground?
There is a lot of tile. Some of it is very old. The farm has been in the family for over 100 years. The house was built in 1922, and it has been continuously inhabited by the Christensen family, and now my wife and I were living there. And I'm sorry, I lost the question.
That's okay. I think you answered it all right. And so, sir, how many hours that have you invested in learning about this, and then with your wife as well before her passing, on this project?
Well, I couldn't really quantify the number there, because we have read, my wife especially was reading and was the most adamant of the two of us that we would not allow the pipeline. My objections were the safety concerns, as were hers, and she was also concerned about the impact of a temporary, at least 100-foot wide easement that would go down to being a 50-foot wide easement owned by someone who we did not know, and someone who could sell that easement to whomever they so desired, and that concerned her greatly.
Has Summit expressed to you why they couldn't avoid your property altogether, and why they could refrain from cutting diagonally across 3 of your parcels?
They did not. I did personally request, because it was in the literature, that you could request a route change, and the agent at the time that I was talking to him, which was probably 2 months ago, informed me that it's already set, it's already put together, and you're not going to get any kind of reroute. I suggested a reroute, just kind of roughly saying, look, everyone around me just about has signed. You're crossing their land. They don't apparently mind you crossing their land because they've signed with you. Why don't you just move a quarter mile north and skip me altogether? They didn't have much of a response to that.
And so if they're not willing to move it or work with you, what would be the point at all in talking to them?
Well, there's always hope that they would move it, or that they could change their route, and I'm a hopeful person.
Has anything that they have told you, shown you, or that you've observed by their behaviors throughout this process really given you hope, or justified that hope in any way?
No, the only thing that they have done fairly consistently is they kept increasing their offer of what they would pay, and we kept saying, this isn't about money, this is really about the land and safety, and they did not respond to that.
Based on your participation in this hearing and everything you've heard, do you believe Summit has carried its burden or proven that they deserve eminent domain across your land?
Absolutely not.
All right, sir. I appreciate that. Nothing further.
Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. You said that you had given
we told her we weren't interested in signing, and she said, well, would you mind if we just surveyed it? And we said, nah, I suppose if you want to survey it, but we're not interested in signing it, so whatever. Well, as time went on and we learned more and more about the pipeline, I then wrote them a letter and saying, we are withdrawing our permission to survey the land. And to their credit, they did call here recently and say, would you give us permission to survey your land? And I said no. And they said, okay, then we'll do you last.
Did Summit ever send you a written notice about surveying?
No.
And you've gotten no notice since that last conversation when they talked to you about surveying?
Pardon?
Sure. You said that very recently they called you again about asking to survey?
Yes.
But they never sent you sent you a written notice?
No.
You talked about how close your residence is to the pipeline. How far away would the nearest emergency management personnel be?
Well, I suppose Holstein would be where that would come from, and that's only 6 miles away from me. But let me tell you a little story about response times. When my wife died, it was 2:57 in the morning, and she had gotten up to go to the bathroom and became disoriented and fell down the stairs. I jumped out of bed. I ran into the bathroom because I thought that's where she was, and she wasn't there. And then I looked over the rail, and she was at the bottom. I ran downstairs to be with her, and then I thought I need to call 911, and I ran back upstairs to get my phone, and ran back downstairs and called from the foot of the stairs. It took them a half an hour to respond. We don't have a half an hour at 800 feet in a 10-inch pipe.
Yeah.
So
I suppose with the volunteer department, they have to call all the volunteers to get in there.
What happened is because we're on the line, the phone call, if you call from upstairs, you get Holstein. If you call from downstairs, you get Buena Vista Tower. That's 3 counties away. I called 15 minutes later and I said, where are they? And she said, well, sir, we had to transfer your call to Cherokee County because your address is in Cherokee County. But we pick up our mail in Holstein, which is only 6 miles away. And so then I called again 15 minutes after that, which completed the half hour, and I said, where are they? And she said, they should be there momentarily. And indeed they were. And so I had sheriff's vehicles from Ida County and sheriff's vehicles from Cherokee County and ambulances from both. And the county coroner from Cherokee County and the mortuary pickup from Ida County.
Okay. I think we get the picture. You mentioned that some of your drainage tile is very old. Is that the old clay type?
Clay type tile, and I'm presuming that it's clay and hand dug in. Her father put some tile in back in the very early to middle 50s, and I'm thinking that was probably clay tile that Harry put in.
Do you know how deep that is?
Haven't the faintest. I have some hand-drawn maps that I suppose Harry could find the tile, but I look at the maps and I'm not even sure what section he's standing in, to tell you the truth.
So if this land is tiled, I assume you've got it in crops.
It is in crop, and it's very productive.
Okay. Is it highly erodible or any CRP?
I've been curious about that statement. This is a galva soil, is what they call it. Now, I don't know if galva is a highly erodible soil or not. I know that Pioneer actually contracts with my tenant to grow seeds, so it's very rich soil. But other than that, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Okay. Okay, I don't see any other questions from the parties, so you may now redirect yourself, which simply means if you need to clarify or make corrections from the questions that were just asked of you, you may.
Well, I really have nothing to add to that, but I do have a few more things to say.
I think you drove a long ways and you got held up by a lot of parties today, so if you have something to add, feel free.
Well, this won't take very long because although I have a lot to say, it's quite short. I was a respiratory care practitioner for 28 years before I retired from that job. And consequently, I really know quite a bit about the effect of CO2 on the human body. Most of my working life was spent working with people with COPD. I don't know if you folks know what that is, but it also goes by the name of emphysema. It's a condition where the alveolar membrane actually thickens and causes the difficulty for the exchange of oxygen coming from the pulmonary artery and CO2 coming from the lung as a metabolic production of cellular metabolism and going across a membrane that is less than 1 light wave thick. The distance that oxygen and carbon dioxide change has to travel is just about 1 light wave thick. When you add in the space between that and the pulmonary capillaries surrounding the alveolar sacs, it doesn't have a long way to go. The concentration, ideally, that it should be exchanging is about 0.35 or 35 parts per million of carbon dioxide. The human body will tolerate a little more than that, and when folks reach what we call the 50-50 club, they have as much carbon dioxide in their blood as they do oxygen. And when they reach that point, life is a struggle, and it's hard. And they describe what they're feeling as I can't breathe. And life is a moment-to-moment proposition for them. As the CO2 goes higher, they struggle even harder to breathe because our respiratory mechanism is not driven by oxygen but by CO2 levels. And the body will struggle up to its very last minute, gasping, to make that exchange between the artery with oxygen and the lung with a high buildup of CO2. I don't know what the concentration of oxygen is to water in the pipeline, but I know that it's a whole lot higher than 35 parts per million. And the body is very sensitive to even slight changes in the CO2, which is what I enjoyed the comments of the last speaker when he said, well, we won't have to worry about struggling too much. Yeah, that's an understatement. So that's what I had to really say. The other thing that really concerns me is the amount of water that it's going to take to transport this CO2 to North Dakota or wherever it's going to end up going. And in Holstein, where they would get the water, the Galva plant is going to apparently drill a well and pull water from the aquifer right there for the Galva plant. Well, that drilling is probably going to be about 1 mile, 2 miles at the most from where Holstein has drilled a well to get their water. When push comes to shove, my question is, who gets the water? The municipalities, do they get it for drinking water? Or does the Galva plant get it for processing and shipping CO2 out of here? And it will become a problem, especially if this drought business continues and people start pumping more groundwater. I guess that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you. And I appreciate the Iowa board giving us at least the opportunity to say our piece and to hear us. Thank you.
Thank you. Safe travels.
Am I excused?
You are excused. Thank you. Go ahead. No, you got it. Okay. With that, we will go off the record today. I'll be done for the day. We will start tomorrow at 8 o'clock.